Come on, get your cockles. Je voudrais. Yeah, what's that? Les petits manger. Breakfast, is it? Deux billets. 2 tickets, s'il vous plaît. Anytime, governor. Come again. Down and out in Paris and London. The podcast.
Chapter 25 then, and instantly we're off again with another time marker. The 8 shillings lasted 3 days and 4 nights. So it's a sort of an anadiplosis of the amount of money left that sort of links over from one chapter to the next. We saw it with Thunder, usually with names of people, the anadiplosis linking from the end of one chapter into the next, we've mentioned already, and we've got that here as well, this time with money. So the 8 and 2 pence, the 8 shillings and 2 pence at the end of chapter 24, and then picking up with chapter 25, and the fact the underwhelming sense that actually doesn't last very long, lasted 3 days and 4 nights, and that was that. So off we go with chapter 25.
The 8 shillings lasted 3 days and 4 nights. After my bad experience in the Waterloo Road, I moved eastward and spent the next night in a lodging house in Pennyfields.
Now he's using proper nouns here. We've seen this before, and we see it many more times, and it's to authenticate the text. These are real places, and if we wanted to, we could visit them, although we clearly wouldn't want to visit these particular places. But it gives it that authenticity and that realism that a piece of travel writing needs to sort of conjure up, really, that sense of reality.
This was a typical lodging house like scores of others in London. It had accommodation for between 50 and 100 men and was managed by a deputy for the owner, that is, for these lodging houses are profitable concerns and are owned by rich men. We slept 15 or 20 in a dormitory. The beds were again cold and hard.
Hendiadys there, I'd say, with that cold and hard to represent the conditions of the lodging house.
But the sheets were not more than a week from the wash, which was an improvement. The charge was 9 pence or a shilling. In the shilling dormitory the beds were 6 feet apart instead of 4, and the terms were cash down by 7 in the evening, or out you went. Downstairs there was a kitchen common to all lodgers, with free firing and a supply of cooking pots, tea basins, and toasting forks. There were 2 great clinker fires, which were kept burning day and night the year through. The work of tending the fires, sweeping the kitchen, and making the beds was done by the lodgers in rotation. One senior lodger, a fine Norman-looking stevedore named Steve, was known as head of the house, and was arbiter of disputes and unpaid chucker-out.
So a stevedore is someone who works on the ships in a dockland area, usually quite strong, physically moving stuff from the docking area into the cargo area of the boats and the ships.
I liked the kitchen. It was a low-ceiled cellar deep underground, very hot and drowsy with coke fumes, and lighted only by the fires, which cast black velvet shadows in the corners.
It's a nice metaphor, isn't it? Cast black velvet shadows. Quite evocative, I think, the description here and the use of adjectives and metaphors there to give us that stronger sense of description. But that's quite a nice description, I think, of the black velvet shadows, quite soft, and I guess it ties in with that idea of the drowsiness created by the coke fumes. So there's a semantic field of softness and sort of soporific nausea almost, I think, in this bit.
Ragged washing hung on strings from the ceiling. Red-lit men, stevedores mostly, moved about the fires with cooking pots. Some of them were quite naked, for they had been laundering and were waiting for their clothes to dry. At night there were games of nap and draughts and songs. "I'm a chap what's done wrong by my parents" was a favourite, and so was another popular song about a shipwreck. Sometimes late at night men would come in with a pail of winkles they'd bought cheap and share them out. There was a general sharing of food, and it was taken for granted to feed men who were out of work. A little pale, wizened creature, obviously dying, referred to as poor Brown, been under the doctor and cut open 3 times, was regularly fed by the others.
The sort of, I suppose, zoomorphism, isn't it, of the little pale, wizened creature it makes the person seem like an animal or a little creature. I was hesitating because I wasn't sure if it's chronomorphism, but I think it's more animalistic, isn't it? More bestial. So let's go with zoomorphism.
2 or 3 of the lodgers were old-age pensioners. Till meeting them, I had never realised that there are people in England who live on nothing but the old-age pension of 10 shillings a week. None of these old men had any other resource whatever. One of them was talkative, and I asked him how he managed to exist. He said, "Well, there's 9pence a night for your kip, that's 5 and 3pence a week, and there's 3pence on Saturdays for a shave, that's 5 and 6, and say you has a haircut once a month for 6pence, that's another 3 halfpence a week, so he has about 4 and 4pence for food and baccy."
Oh, lovely. You've got 4.4 for food and bacca. Oh, how delightful.
So you've got some direct speech here, a little bit of direct speech from this inhabitant of the... Is this the wizened creature talking? No, it's not. It's one of the talkative ones. And you've got the direct speech, including the dialect and the elision that Orwell gives us there to give us that authentic sense of the Cockney Londoner, and yeah, that's it, isn't it? Really, just the like tobacco becoming backy, makes it more convincing, and immerses us, we can hear the sound, particularly when we hear the audiobook, but even in our own mind, we'd be able to hear the sound of these types talking away, and it gives us that sense of being in the place.
He could imagine no other expenses. His food was bread and margarine and tea. Towards the end of the week, dry bread and tea without milk. And perhaps he got his clothes from charity. He seemed contented, valuing his bed and the fire more than food. But with an income of 10 shillings a week to spend money on a shave, it is awe-inspiring.
Is that hyperbole? Probably not, actually. It is awe-inspiring because, with such little money, he's willing to spend money on a shave, something which you would think might, go by the wayside. But he seems to be inspired. So I don't think that is hyperbole. I think that's genuine awe that he has for him. And then just backing up a little bit, you've got the polysynthetic list. His food was bread and margarine and tea, bread and tea without milk. So you've got, I suppose, it's an ironic sense of range of food. Actually, the range of food is very limited. So the polysyndeton there actually only serves to enhance how limited his resources are, I suppose.
All day I loafed in the streets, east as far as Wapping, west as far as Whitechapel. It was queer after Paris. Everything was so much cleaner and quieter and drearier.
Bit of triadic bathos there. So we've got the polysyndeton of much cleaner and quieter and drearier. So what that does is it emphasises that last word, which is bathos. Well, the word is drearier, but it serves as bathos, doesn't it? Because it's the other two things are quite positive. Cleaner, good. Quieter, fine. Drearier, not so good. So you've got that sort of come down at the end there in that triadic structure.
One missed the scream of the trams and the noisy, festering life of the back streets and the armed men clattering through the squares. The crowds were better dressed, and the faces comelier and milder and more alike, without that fierce individuality and malice of the French. There was less drunkenness and less dirt, and less quarrelling, and more idling.
So, peppered with polysyndeton there, with the ands comelier and milder and more alike, less drunkenness and less dirt and less quarrelling and more idling. So the contrast there, it's not antithesis because they're not opposites. But, well, actually, no, they are, aren't they? You could say that the less and the more are direct opposites. So there is antithesis there of less some things and more other things. So he uses antithesis there to heighten, again, with bathos, I think, at the end, the idling. There's less of the outrageous behaviour, but there is more just loafing around, idling around.
Knots of men stood at all the corners, slightly underfed, but but kept going by the tea and 2 slices, which the Londoner swallows every 2 hours.
Hyperbole? Probably not. Probably is every 2 hours. But we sort of imagine it to be hyperbole, imagine it to be exaggeration, because it seems very regular. But that probably is the life that he finds himself in.
And seemed to breathe a less feverish air than in Paris. It was the land of the tea urn and the labour exchange, as Paris is the land of the bistro and the sweatshop.
So these things are symbols. You could argue they're synecdoche if you wanted to bring it under that banner term, but they're symbolic. The tea urn being symbolic of England and the labour exchange. And look at how the parallelism here. So the tea urn, something you consume, and the labour exchange, the sort of the place you'd go to find work. As Paris is the land of the bistro, something else you would consume, and the sweatshop. So you've got this real, quite damning indictment of Parisian welfare, and certainly as far as jobs go, rather than a fair system of labour and social welfare. Really, you've got sweatshops. These people being paid very little and working horrendous long hours, as he did in the kitchens. So there's parallelism there, but also using symbols like the bistro, like the tea urn of those 2 places. And I suppose, it's quite a good one to use because the whole book holds up and juxtaposes Paris and London. The whole point of it is that it's his travels through Paris and London. So all the way through this book, we're being invited to compare. And there in that phrase, that sentence, you've got that parallelism which does that so well.
It was interesting to watch the crowds. The East London women are pretty. It is the mixture of blood, perhaps, and Limehouse was sprinkled with Orientals, Chinamen, Chittagonian Lascars, Dravidians selling silk scarves, even a few Sikhs, come goodness knows how. Here and there were street meetings. In Whitechapel, somebody called the Singing Evangel undertook to save you from hell for the charge of 6pence. In the East India Dock Road, the Salvation Army were holding a service. They were singing, "Anybody here like Sneaking Judas," to the tune of "What's to be done with the drunken sailor?"
So we've got here a fair bit of use of proper nouns, be it the place names, be it the places that these people are from. The Chittagonian, which I think is a part of, is it Bangladesh? Certainly Asia somewhere. Limehouse, East London, Dravidians, Sikhs, Whitechapel, East India Dock Road. That's a link back across to the British Empire, the colonisation of East India and the exploitation really of East India and the trade company that the British Empire set up to make masses of money. The Salvation Army, even, these are all proper nouns. Tower Hill there. The whole point of which it gives that authenticity as he walks through. These are real places. They're still there now. The East India Dock Road is still a place there. Whitechapel, of course. Limehouse, still a region of southeast London.
On Tower Hill, 2 Mormons were trying to address a meeting. Round their platform struggled a mob of men, shouting and interrupting. Someone was denouncing them for polygamists. A lame, bearded man, evidently an atheist, had heard the word God and was heckling angrily. There was a confused uproar of voices. "My dear friends, if you would only let us finish what we were saying. That's right, give 'em a say. Don't get on the argue. No, you answer me. Can you show me God? You show him me, then I'll believe in him." Oh.
Now what we've got here is, and I'll leave it for the rest, but they've got this stickomythia of these interrupted voices, and it shows the chaos really, and the sort of dissonance between these worldviews and philosophical, spiritual views, represented through the stickomythia, these single line arguments.
"Shut up, don't keep interrupting of them. Interrupt yourself, f***ing polygamists. Well, there's a lot to be said for polygamy. Take the f***ing women out of industry anyway. My dear friends, if you would just... No, don't you slip out of it. Have you seen God? Have you touched him? Have you shook hands with him? Oh, don't get on the argue, for Christ's sake, don't get on the argue," etc., etc. I listened for 20 minutes, anxious to learn something about Mormonism, but the meeting never got beyond shouts. It is the general fate of street meetings. In Middlesex Street, among the crowds at the market, a draggled, down-at-heel woman was hauling a brat of 5 by the arm.
I suppose brat is chromomorphic as well. It's dehumanising the child to a brat.
She brandished a tin trumpet in its face. The brat was squalling. "Enjoy yourself," yelled the mother. "What do you think I brought you out here for and bought you your trumpet and all? Do you want to go across my knee, you little bastard? You shall enjoy yourself."
Brilliant. Straight from the parenting textbook, isn't it, that one? The imperative there, you shall enjoy yourself. Is this the first taboo word? Probably not. We've had worse, haven't we? But they've been sort of censored. This might be one of the first ones in English that we've had printed, verbatim. The others have been, like the bit above with the atheist and the Mormon there with the F, but censored there. But yeah, he's giving us it warts and all, isn't he? Is old Orwell giving us the language, the elision of the people, the dialect of the people, and also the taboo words of the people. So we're very much in the vernacular and in amongst the people shouting and screaming, effing and blinding. Oh, dear me.
Some drops of spittle fell from the trumpet. The mother and the child disappeared, both bawling. It was all very queer after Paris. The last night that I was in the Pennyfields lodging house, there was a quarrel between 2 of the lodgers. A vile scene. One of the old-age pensioners, a man of about 70, naked to the waist, he'd been laundering, was violently abusing a short, thick-set stevedore who stood with his back to the fire. I could see the old man's face in the light of the fire, and he was almost crying with grief and rage.
The hen diet is there of grief and rage to reinforce, if you will, the emotion that he's overcome by.
Evidently something very serious had happened. The old-age pensioner. "You." The stevedore. "Shut your mouth, you old before I set about you." The old-age pensioner. "Just you try it on, you f***ing hooligan. I'm 30 years older than you, but it wouldn't take much to make me give you one as to knock you into a bucket full of piss." The stevedore. "Oh, and then perhaps I wouldn't smash you up after, you old shit." Thus, for 5 minutes, the lodgers sat round, unhappy, trying to disregard the quarrel.
I'm glad we've got the audiobook. The version I've got doesn't have anything as colourful as this. I've got the bucket full of piss, but not the other ones. Brilliant. Far more interesting. So we've got, as I say, warts and all, the full range of the English language there, the authentic language and the taboo words of the common man.
The stevedore looked sullen, but the old man was growing more and more furious. He kept making little rushes at the other, sticking out his face and screaming from a few inches distant, like a cat on a wall, and spitting.
More zoomorphism, like a cat on a wall and spitting. So these people are presented as caricatures. We've seen this before with Thunder. Might be worth comparing. And he uses that to give us these really vivid, heightened, exaggerated. Or when I say heightened, perhaps not in nobility, perhaps just in their sort of visceral qualities. They're sort of heightened and almost larger than life. Well, they are larger than life, aren't they?
He was trying to nerve himself to strike a blow, and not quite succeeding. Finally, he burst out, "Arsehole! That's what you are! A f***ing arsehole! Take that in your dirty gob and suck it, you Oh, God, I'll smash you before I've done with you. A shit, that's what you are! A son of a bitch whore! Lick that, you That's what I think of you black bastard!" Whereat he suddenly collapsed on a bench, took his face in his hands, and began crying. The other man, seeing that public feeling was against him, went out. Afterwards I heard Steve explaining the cause of the quarrel. It appeared that it was all about a shilling's worth of food. In some way the old man had lost his store of bread and margarine, and so would have nothing to eat for the next 3 days, except what the others gave him in charity. The stevedore, who was in work and well fed, had taunted him, hence the quarrel. When my money was down to 1 and 4pence, I went for a night to a lodging-house in Bow, where the charge was only 8p. One went down an area and through an alleyway into a deep, stifling cellar, 10 feet square. 10 men, navvies mostly, were sitting in the fierce glare of the fire. It was midnight, but the deputy's son, a pale, sticky child of 5, was there playing on the navvy's knees. An old Irishman was whistling to a blind bullfinch in a tiny cage. There were other songbirds there, tiny, faded things that had lived all their lives underground. The lodgers habitually made water in the fire to save going across a yard to the lavatory. As I sat at the table, I felt something stir near my feet, and looking down, saw a wave of black things moving slowly across the floor. They were black beetles.
Just going back up to the deputy's son, the pale, sticky child of 5. More unflattering pre-modifiers there we can add to our repertoire of unflattering descriptions of people.
There were 6 beds in the dormitory, and the sheets marked in huge letters stolen from number Bow Road smelt loathsome. In the next bed to me lay a very old man, a pavement artist with some extraordinary curvature of the spine that made him stick right out of bed, with his back a foot or 2 from my face. It was bare and marked with curious swirls of dirt, like a marble tabletop. During the night a man came in drunk and was sick on the floor.
The chromomorphism there of his back, the man's back, like a marble tabletop. So reducing him to the status of, or reducing his skin to the status of a marble tabletop. Well, it's quite nice as marble, isn't it, I suppose, but you wouldn't want it as your skin, really.
To my bed. There were bugs, too, not so bad as in Paris, but enough to keep one awake. It was a filthy place. Yet the deputy and his wife were friendly people, and ready to make one a cup of tea at any hour of the day or night.
And again, a sort of absurd bathos ending to this chapter again, because in amongst this filth and squalor, you've got these people who would make a cup of tea at any hour of the day or night. So this sort of absurdity, a kind of uplift there, really, in a way. So that's just one to look out for there, the sort of bathos there at the end of that chapter. We'd expect it. We tend to find bathos at the end of chapters and sections, as we have done throughout everything, really. But we certainly have that here, that in amongst this squalor and filth and debauchery, is that the right word? Probably not debauchery. They're too poor for debauchery, aren't they? But there's just this filth, really. There is hope, there is sort of glimmer of friendly people and people who are charitable. And that's it for chapter 25. So I'll see you again back for chapter 26, if I can find the bleeding off button. See you later.